Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Hostiles, starring Christian Bale, Rosamund Pike, Wes Studi, Jesse Plemons, Adam Beach, Rory Cochrane, and Ben Foster, directed by Scott Cooper. Now, this is the only one in this movie of his filmography that I have not seen yet. And let's see how I think of it. Let's just get into it right off the bat. In Montana, 1892, Wesley Quaid saws wood while his wife Rosalie, played by Rosamund Pike, schools her children, and out of the blue, some Indians come to their house and on some horses, while one kills Wesley as the Indians shoot their girls and their baby, and that is something I am not a big fan of. Right off the bat, you're breaking all kinds of fucking rules. If you shoot kids or innocent animals in my rule book, it comes to the point where I'm alienating your movie, and I'm almost 5 minutes into this 2 hours and 14-minute movie. And so far, it leaves a sour taste in my mouth. And for a Western, it's a very bad thing to have somebody alienate your movie right off the bat while Rosalie escapes them. And is this gang going to be another bumpy? And is this going to be another bumpy ride from director Scott Cooper? Because I feel it. Captain Joseph Blocker, played by Christian Bale, takes some Indians as hostages in New Mexico and bring back to Master Sergeant Thomas Metz, played by Rory Cochrane. As this is my first viewing and I'm observing these characters as who they are, despite I don't like this opening sequence. And the fact that I keep calling them Indians instead of Native Americans. Now remember, this was a Western with the theme Cowboys versus Indians. And that's what they were at the time. And I don't mean to sound racist by any means, but I'm going to call them Indians for the rest of the movie. And just for this movie only. I'm just going to put it there. We move on to the next day as Joe is wanted by Colonel Abraham Biggs, played by Stephen Lang from Avatar. And they talk with Jeremy Wilkes, and played by Bill Camp, as these characters are mumbling to the point I don't understand what the fuck is going on in this movie. Now, I wish I had a second viewing of the movie to appreciate the dialogue and the movie for what it is, but for my first viewing, I can't believe what I'm hearing and watching at this point. And Christian Bale has delivered a better Western movie. It's called 3:10 to Yuma, which is a remake of another Western, as I don't remember the movie very well. But so far, I'm not a fan of the characters in this movie, particularly Joe, as he comes off like a careless asshole. Joe visits Chief Yellow Hawk, played by Wes Studi, before he leaves, and I'm thinking, what is the point of these scenes, as well as this movie? Joe picks Corporal Henry Woodson and Lieutenant Rudy Kidder, played by Jesse Plemons, and Private Philippe Desjardins, played by Timothy Chalamet. As he recruits for what reason? It might have explained, but I couldn't quite understand the dialogue because it's toned down until they get out of town, and Joe shouts in Indian, "Get down to Yellow Hawk," as this was the part of the reason why I'm not the biggest Christian Bale fan. Despite he picks interesting roles, but it's because he shouts a hell of a lot, and they continue their journey, but unfortunately, after the first 30 minutes, I am bored as hell. They find the home of the Quaids as it's abandoned and shot and burned up like we saw in the first 5 minutes of the movie, as they enter and find Rosalie holding her dead children as she says they're sleeping, and Joe wants to help her out while the others come in and find her, and Joe sees she's got blood all over her, and they take her to camp and give her a fresh blanket and water, but she wants to bury her family. And I get the impression Rosalie doesn't know how to use a shovel, and she's frightened and sad about the death of her family while shouting in the heavens and have a funeral at nighttime. And honestly, the movie is very well shot while she asks Joe to bury her with her family. But unfortunately, I'm still bored as hell while the Indian family, led by Black Hawk, son of Yellow Hawk, played by Adam Beach, wants to give Rosalie a dress as a gift, but Joe tells them not to take another fucking step. And the next scene, Rosalie picks up Joe's gun and goes to the burial of her family, and as Joe goes with her, and Rosalie goes to sleep as there as she misses her family based on Rosamund Pike's acting. And which is tremendous, in my opinion. Yellowhawk asks Joe to remove the handcuffs while he explains the situation she's going through, which is a sad situation for sure. But Joe refuses, and they go running in the middle of the desert. And the movie is moving pretty slowly as Private Desjardins is shot, and the Indian gang start attacking and killing everybody. As Joe is the toughest there is, and they run away. Rosalie shoots one of them repeatedly while already dead because she wants vengeance against them and for killing her family. And Yellowhawk wants to stand against the Indian gangsters and tells Rudy to unchain them, and if they do anything wrong, to put a bullet in them. As they ride together for miles and camp out at night, and others. Then the action sequence where they get shot up, nothing's really happening. Whereas in the 310 to Yuma remake, there's a lot going on for damn sure. And I'd rather be watching that than this movie, in my opinion. The next day, while riding, Joe senses something is wrong as he points his gun and sees dead Indian gang members as they walk away. Joe realizes on Guy Few's asleep while the couple of the Indians are hanging out, and they arrive to a town where everyone rests while Joe and Rosalie have dinner with Lieutenant Colonel Ross McCowan and his wife while they offer Rosalie to stay in the town until Christmas with food, water, and shelter. And the town seems nice, but it doesn't change my opinion about the movie in general. While the next day, Joe sits in a hospital with Henry as he can't breathe, and when waking up and telling him he let him down, as Joe believes he never let him down. And the acting is well done by these two actors, as I could appreciate the scene for what it was, which is good acting by these two. We move on to Rosalie feeling comfortable riding with Joe, and she takes the Indian wife, Elk Woman, for the blanket, and they introduce themselves to each other. And I'm going to give the movie something. The cinematography as we ride from place to place is magnificent, from the desert to the mountains to the forest. Joe puts Philip Wills, played by Ben Foster, chained on a tree, talking with Joe, and I get the impression the guy is a racist towards Indians and is evil. How many times have I seen Ben Foster as a bad guy in the movies? It's that obvious. Well, the movie is kind of growing on me, despite I'm kind of bored with it, but it's a like it or hate it situation, but it's not a hateful movie. But it's going to be from hateful to disliking the movie thus far, but it's almost getting in the middle of the road for me, but not quite there yet. When Elk Woman has been captured by some of Philip's men, as one of the kids alerts the camp as Elk Woman and Rosalie are captured by the men, while Joe and his men get them killed, and I couldn't understand what the fuck was going on at that point, except Rosalie and Elk Woman escape. As the next day comes, and Philip comes off the tree as he talks with Joe and torments him about how the Indians are a threat. Until Philip goes back on the tree, and I'm leading to believe this guy is absolutely stupid. And the more he talks, the more he's proving my point. They continue riding in the rain and tying up Philip while in the rain, as Rosalie is safe in a tent, and one guy with a beard quits on Joe and calls out Yellowhawk to forgive him for slavery reasons, while Rudy dies and Philip escapes, and he takes the horses, but not all of them, while Yellowhawk is sick with a cold. And I do like the forest scenes as we get to daytime because it's gorgeously shot, and they find the bearded man shot himself, as well as Philip, which is sad, but it's unfortunately not enough for me to like the movie because it's running a little too long for me. But the performances are fine at best, as the characters are growing on me, but the scene is a little bit too much, for sure. And I'm waiting for this movie to be over, as it's, like I said, a bit too long. Rosalie tells Joe about how she has to live with her life after her family is dead, and the dialogue isn't very well written, as I'm distracted by me wanting this movie to be over and done with. Yellow Hawk thanks Rosalie for her kindness and her spirit while having the cold, and the next day Joe says he had many friends, and so does Yellow Hawk, and tells them he's lost many of them and continue riding with them as they arrive in Montana, which is where Yellow Hawk and his family's home is. And when they arrive there, Yellow Hawk dies and gets buried, and I start to get really bored again. Like, come on, finish the movie up. But something finally happens when some men on horses with Cyrus Lound and his boys arriving as they want Joe and the remaining people to get off his land, as Joe refuses to walk and walks towards them, and see Rosalie holding a gun, thinking she ain't got what it takes to fire the gun, as she does, and the final shootout begins and gets them all down, as most of Joe's group is dead, while Cyrus is crawling to escape until Joe stabs him to death, and we move on to a train randomly, as Rosalie and the Indian daughter go off to Chicago, while Joe gives the daughter Little Bear a gift of a book, as Rosalie and Little Bear go on the train and take off while Joe watches and decides to get on the train. And the climax was fine to a movie that started off very hateable to, well, let's just get to the rating and then you'll see what I mean. I'll give this movie a 4.7 out of 10. It is well made for sure, but the first 5 minutes told me I'm not going to like the movie right off the bat, but the characters did kind of grow on me, which is a smart move on director Scott Cooper's part. The movie is a little too long, as I felt it dragging, as there were times I didn't quite understand the dialogue. And the first 5 minutes made me hate on this movie, but because of shooting the kids dead, but it kind of improved on me as it comes from hateable to dislikable. The cinematography was gorgeous to look at, and there were times the movie grew on me, but unfortunately it's not enough for me to really care for the movie, as I didn't care for it at the end of the day. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Antlers. And until then, it's time to go home, hostiles. Time to go home.